We're going to be attending 7 Seas High.
Huh?
They said they're going to be attending 7 Seas High!
What if The Sweet Life on Deck in its entirety is just the 4th season of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? Huh? The Sweet Life on Deck is noticeably not a great show. I mean, the original things that made The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody so good were not translated into this show. If anything, the negative things were translated. And then it got kicked up to a worse notch. If you've seen my offensive episodes of any of these series, you'll know I'm not exactly the most giving guy when it comes to critiques. I like to kind of judge things a lot harsher than they need to be judged, just for fun, and then kind of praise them later, because I do genuinely have an optimistic and positive outlook on most of these episodes, so I just kind of wanted to make that clear. But I figured out the solution to The Sweet Life on Deck. What if The Sweet Life never happened, and instead of having a 1st season of Sweet Life on Deck, we had a 4th season of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? I know you guys all want that. The famous story is that Disney didn't renew their contracts so they could give them a 1st season salary on a new show, as opposed to just continuing the old show. Not super fun, especially for the Sprouse twins, who probably didn't want to do a pay deduction while also giving more time of their life to production, being minors. Like, it's just not a cool look. And I found a way to kind of look at it in a brighter, more positive point of view, where we look at The Sweet Life on Deck and we take out the best elements of it and see if it still works. There's a lot of episodes in The Sweet Life on Deck that dive into, like, the characters from the original show, or they continue the lore of what the original show set up, whether it's just through Zack and Cody, or bringing back characters, or even bringing back concepts that they did in the 1st series.
Thanks, but I'm already nauseous from the whole boat rocking thing.
Like, that's kind of what I'm looking at here. And so I streamlined all the episodes I found that bring back recurring elements from the famous Boston Tipton and put them into Sweet Life on Deck and see if it's a tolerable show at that point. Spoiler alert, it's not for me. So we're gonna go through each episode and kind of see how it looks. With a surprise, there's actually an episode I feel like you wouldn't offhandedly count, but I'm going to count it, and we'll get to that when the time comes. I'm not going to tell you right here, it's going to be a surprise. So we start with Season 1, Episode 1. Of course, you have to start out with the pilot. You can't just jump into the new show. I remember as a kid, I watched the first episode of Sweet Life on Deck because I was just so curious how they were going to work on this transition, if it was going to be natural, if they were going to have too many replacement characters, who is coming back. Something that I love to watch in reboots is like how the chemistry is recreated, how they fill in gaps of characters that aren't going to come back, and if the show is going to feel that way anymore. For example, we don't have Maddie, we don't have Esteban, Arwen, we even only have Carrie for a glimpse, and she's not going to be a main character in this, which is insane. The whole point of the original show is that it's a bunch of kids surrounded by adults all the time and trying to find a way to keep up through like their hijinks and all their fun pranks and getting each other into more trouble. But here, The Sweet Life on Deck is more about 2 socially awkward kids trying to fit into people their age. So Sweet Life on Deck is automatically for younger people, unintentionally. I mean, the original series probably wasn't even thinking about that. Whereas we're getting to the new season of Sweet Life on Deck, you can afford to think about that stuff. Most notably, the big differences would be the additional characters, like we have Miss Tutwiler, the new teacher, something that actually fills in a void, makes it a little bit better than the first series.
I will treat you the same as everyone else. Back of the line! I mean, if that's okay with you.
It isn't.
And that's okay with me.
Because we just had a bunch of interchangeable teachers. Zack and Cody really didn't go to school as much as they were at the Tipton, which is kind of interesting. Like, Wizards and Hannah Montana weren't, like, far away from school as much as Sweet Life was. So yeah, Miss Tutwiler is a nice addition that keeps a consistent teacher on the staff. We have Woody, who is going to be Zack's new roommate. Zack's never had a roommate before, so having Cody and Zack be in separate rooms is a nice new addition.
Holy Toledo!
You have to acknowledge that it departures from the original show. Makes me wonder if the 4th season of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody could have just been them in separate rooms and having a lot more independence. That would have been really funny. But you know what? They decided to go with this whole new ship concept, so we're going with it too. Woody is a wild card character, kind of like what Zack was, but this time I guess he's introduced to kind of give them like buddy energy. Zack ends up being a little bit of a straight man in their relationship because Woody is just so much crazier than him. So Zack kind of feels out of place sometimes, but he fills out a really funny dynamic as Bob was, or Barbara from the first series. Like, Sweet Life always had recurring guest stars that were just as funny as the main cast, so it's cool to see more cast members be brought into this. Of course, we have the most notable one, Bailey Prickett. Yeah, so Bailey is Cody's love interest throughout this entire show, something that is very different from the original Sweet Life. Just the fact that Cody is more in an on-again, off-again relationship makes it a lot more adult feeling, whether it's supposed to be or not. Like, it goes from being a middle school show to a high school show in a way that I never thought there would be that big of a difference, but there is. It's social lives become a little bit more vibrant. You see people outside of school a lot more than usual, and you have complex relationships with both friends like Woody, relationships like Bailey, or even throughout school like Miss Tutwiler. One of the really cool moves that they made in this that I was not expecting at all was the addition of London Tipton. Thank God she's in it. That was like one of the first things that made me look forward to this show. If it was just Zack and Cody and no London Maddie, like, I don't know what I would have thought. But the fact that we get London right off the bat in this pilot too is really cool. They kind of weave her in to Zack and Cody's education in a way that's kind of crazy because, you know, like, originally they're like 3 years apart and they just slowly have London get younger and younger just to match the boys' grade.
Are they all orange? I need to go change.
She becomes a lot more in their social circle as opposed to like a babysitter figure, which is something that's kind of jarring if you've watched the original Sweet Life a couple times. But I think they do a good job at keeping the dynamic of rich and poor and what goes on the boat, with more so shifting to be about buddy comedy with Zack and Cody. Kind of annoying that they bunk them with other people right off the bat. Like, that's kind of defeating the purpose of a buddy comedy. I guess they're just trying to take the worst parts of a buddy comedy and the original series and make that work. I feel like they didn't think about it that hard, and that's kind of the issue here. I do think it's really fun that they had Let Us Entertain You, season 3, episode 21 of the last series. I essentially consider that like the pilot to this series. In that episode, Cody and Zack actually get their mom tickets to a cruise ship, and it's the SS Tipton, the perfect extension of the Tipton, and that is the perfect way to introduce it before the show is even announced. It's just Zack and Cody and their mom on this new boat. We get familiar with the new set pretty comfortably before we're even known to expect to have this as a mainstay for the series. They lie to their mom saying that she's there for just a vacation and this is all gonna be just them relaxing, but it turns out they lie to her about the fact they need her to perform. The only reason that this trip is free is because she has to sing on the sky deck. So now Zack and Cody get to have a vacation, but their mom is just screwed the entire episode.
Mom? You might not want to strain your voice before the show.
And you feel bad for her. I do like the hijinks in this, like seeing them on a boat with the same energy as Sweet Life of Zack and Cody was really cool. I wonder which executive at Disney pushed for this, because this was such a good idea, and I don't think I would have even watched the pilot if I wasn't already familiar with seeing that cruise ship deck. Like, that would have been a really unfamiliar thing I would have had to wrap my head around a little easier. So yeah, Let Us Entertain You is the first episode in this 4th season series. I'm stealing it from season 3 and making it season 4. So we got the first episode being Let Us Entertain You, the second episode being the pilot, The Sweet Life Set Sail, with all these new additions and showing us the new dynamics we have to get used to, along with like Mr. Mosby and having the most fun parts like translated over. Most of the first season has a lot of callbacks to this, so you'll see a lot of these episodes being from that, and then the second season has a few, and then the third season wraps it up in a way that is very original Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, so it's fun to jump into those, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So first episode we have is Let Us Entertain You from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, season 3. Then we have Sweet Life Set Sail from Sweet Life on Deck, season 1. And then now we jump up to season 1, episode 9, Chocolate and Flowers. I was going to do episode 7, It's All Greek to Me, the one with Arwen as a guest star, but they don't have him playing himself, so I kind of didn't want to use it as like this direct canon to the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. So I'm gonna jump to episode 9, and it's about Barbara and Bob. So yeah, Barbara and Bob visit the deck of The Sweet Life, and it already feels like it's the original show. Bob is one of the funniest characters from the original series. He's like this semi-serious kid with like a really joking expression.
My passion is as fiery as my hair.
Especially in the election episode from season 2. I remember him being one of the funniest characters. He turns into a businessman in season 3 when the twins get superpowers. Everything about him is really funny, and he's in the show from the very beginning. Core identity of The Sweet Life. So there's no way I wasn't considering this episode as one of the episodes in this season. Barbara is Cody's love interest from the first show. There wasn't really a big emphasis on love storylines, considering it was more about living around the Tipton. Like I said, Sweet Life on Deck is the show that kind of takes that under its belt and becomes more of its identity with Cody and his love triangle. This episode is the perfect transition between the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and the Sweet Life on Deck. So Barbara was his former girlfriend. They would go golfing together. They'd study together. They had this competitive nature that was very akin to Drake and Josh with Josh and Mindy. They essentially were Josh and Mindy, Barbara and Cody, like they're all working at the same pub. In this episode, when they visit, basically Cody is planning on telling Barbara that he's not interested in her anymore. And at the same time, Barbara is about to tell Cody that she's dating Bob, something I was not expecting to happen. The expectations of the episode is that like Cody and Zack are gonna get to spend time with their former friends. Zack's whole through line is that he wants to just spend guy time with Bob, but Bob keeps getting like ridiculed or like criticized by Barbara, and they're like, something must be going on here. And the only way to kind of one up this whole situation is Cody telling Barbara that he actually has his own girlfriend, and it's Bailey, which is kind of funny because it's like he likes Bailey anyway. It's a little desperate to stay like they're already dating without telling her that that's his plan. Very crazy for Cody to do, but makes sense for somebody who's not like relationship experienced. It's a lot of him battling with himself, using Bailey's persona as a cover, which gets really funny at times, I have to admit. Seeing Cody trying to fight for his old girlfriend, somebody he doesn't really like anymore, just to prove that he's over her is kind of wacky, but it definitely gives me vibes of the first series where it feels like the cast reuniting, but also there's a plot going on. Like the characters have differences they have to work through. It feels like Zack and Cody would be a lot less close to Bob and Barbara, which is kind of sad, like having them be like a core identity and being so drifted apart from that core identity makes this episode being the third kind of depressing. I remember as a kid being like, dang, are they not gonna bring them back constantly? Like they just have one episode? Because these characters are so minor and supporting to a point where they're only on it every now and then. Like at that point, you should bring Allison Stoner from the original show. That would feel like a true connection. But I don't know, bringing back anybody and not keeping them is just always so sad. It feels like a tease to think of the original series. It's like the writers know that we'd rather watch that, so they're just trying to convince us it's still going on. But if you watch Flowers and Chocolate in the progression of Let Us Entertain You, then the pilot to this show, and now this one, like it starts to feel a little more natural. I feel like streamlines it to be more of the original show in general. If you skip all these episodes of Zack and Cody getting used to the boat, Cody and Bailey's hijinks, you start to see that there is a lot of potential in this, and you could see why the writers enjoyed making this jump to the boat. Like it's so ripe for new stories, new plot lines. They even change how the plot lines are laid out. Sure, it's not the best, and I don't think it's better than The Sweet Life, but it's nice to try something new just for the sake of trying it. My favorite part in this episode is when Cody and Bailey are at the movies with Barbara and Bob, and like they're watching this like romantic rom-com, and it's essentially like commentating on everything the two are going through. I love when sitcoms do that, where they kind of call out the main characters through the form of like what they're watching on TV. That's really funny to me, and it escalates the situation so much further because Cody has to pretend like him and Bailey are dating without even Bailey knowing. It's one thing to have the couples pretend to be couples, but to not have one of the other couples know, like that's crazy. So Cody even asks for licorice at this movie theater and then makes it look like he's putting his arm around Bailey. I'm like, Cody, you're being creepy. I don't think she's gonna ever date you if she finds out that's what you're doing here. And it kind of actually adds to the stakes a lot. Like you want to see Cody and Bailey together. They have a really good chemistry, despite the fact it doesn't look like Bailey actually likes him back. This episode is a prime example. She's offended every time he puts his arm around her. It's like you could have used this as the perfect example of building their relationship and have Bailey be like, huh, this is sweet. Like, maybe she's into it too. But it just looks like Cody is simping over her this entire series. Whatever. We're not going to get into that. I'm not doing a retrospective on the Sweet Life on Deck right now. But yeah, Flowers and Chocolate, great addition, great inclusion of old story elements and putting them in the new show's context. Feels very fourth season to me. The fourth episode in this little fourth season installment is going to be called Maddie on Deck. Yeah, I guess you could guess where this is going. This is one of the most memorable episodes of the first season because it's one of the ones they promised that would connect to the original series to get the viewers to watch. I remember being hesitant about Sweet Life on Deck, but if you saw Maddie Fitzpatrick in the promos, you probably felt a lot better diving into this show and expecting the original vibe to be there. But you're gonna be disappointed. This is like not one of my favorite episodes, but it definitely works as like the fourth episode of this. It's season 1, episode 13 of Sweet Life on Deck, and now Sweet Life of Zack and Cody season 4, episode 4. Yep, Maddie Fitzpatrick. She is such a funny character in the original show. Classic candy counter girl trying to make her way through life as a smart aleck and trying to get money while also dealing with the fact that nothing really works in her favor. Usually a lot of things go wrong when she tries to be a good person. Like the Birdman of Boston episode, she was like a big protester against the zoos and she fought against Mr. Mosby for a raise. She's a very cautious, neurotic character that adds a lot of depth to the show that Cody doesn't have to take on in Sweet Life on Deck. Because in Sweet Life on Deck, Cody has to be the guy that's like, you know, the environment and standing up for things. Like, Maddie was the original poster child for that, and I feel like all those attributes had to get shoved onto Cody, making him a lot more rigid for no reason. And there's not a lot of comic relief because it's more him against everybody. Maddie is also the one that kind of originated that vibe to the Sweet Life, that advocate fighting vibe. It's also hard to ignore that Zack had a crush on her. Like, it was kind of a part of Zack's little romantic storyline, and while there wasn't a lot of romance in the original Sweet Life, there definitely had this element of the boys still had crushes. Relationships would play a part every now and then, and even though the Sweet Life on Deck kind of takes that as its like main persona, like this is a good way of weaving that into it. Like, having Maddie come back and Zack actually care about her this time is really cool.
Well, since Maddie's coming, I went a little wild with the hygiene.
It's so funny that, like, London feels like no connection to Maddie, although it does kind of make her seem a lot more shallow. Like, she's not super inviting, she doesn't seem to have, like, a super strong connection, when really they shared most of their B-plots. Mosby is super excited about seeing Maddie again, which is sweet. Like, I can't believe he saw her as a friend. I can't tell if that's more of a genuine connection or just because the show portrayed it that way and that character assumed that's what he was supposed to do. Feels a little inorganic at times, but then you kind of forgive a lot of it when the cast fights and Maddie comes down to the sky deck and they kind of like shut her down. Of course, Zack is the most excited to see her because she was probably his favorite part of the Tipton to begin with. That was such a funny plot line to have him hitting on her all the time. And I love the new hairdo she has. It definitely gives me fourth season of Zack and Cody vibes. Not super hard to weave her into the plots like this, which is always exciting. She plays a lot of the straight man where like everything is a little ridiculous to her. She has a lot of bubbly moments, but for the most part, it's about her being excited for all the stops they're making on the trip. The ship stops at a castle, and Cody is more so involved in Bailey in this episode, so I don't want to get too into that dynamic. It's more so about Zack. I would call this like a Zack episode. They visit a castle as one of the stops on the ship, and Maddie is super excited to see the prince. She cares a lot about guys, I guess. That is definitely from the original series. I feel like they had a lot of really funny plot lines of trying to impress guys, like with Zac Efron, with so many elements, so it's cool to see that come back here. The prince ends up being somebody that's kind of like Zack in maturity. He's a lot younger and little and sees Zack as a threat. Kind of views Maddie as an object, which is kind of disrespectful. The prince gives me very Moises Arias vibes. Like, it feels like Rico from Hannah Montana is a king and just demanding to see Maddie all the time. And poor Maddie, expecting like this nice fairy tale experience at this new castle as somebody who has been poor in the past, is really fun. And seeing her react to how little this kid is, how immature he is, it makes Zack look a lot better, which is kind of sad. Before, she would just dismiss Zack as this kid she used to babysit, and now he's a lot older and seems to fit into her life a little more naturally, not in a romantic way, but I don't know, it's complicated. He's now in the same social group as London, as opposed to like being much older. So since they're at the same age, I can't help but feel like that's a possibility. They could end up together, but we never really see Ashley Tisdale or Maddie again, which is definitely a major loss. But for overall just reintroducing us to the 4th season, it's kind of a good addition. It feels like the end of her chapter as opposed to the beginning of it, you know? Maddie kind of serves as like the main character in this episode, which I like. She didn't just come back as a supporting character for Zack and Cody. She is fully taking the helm of the A plot because this prince wants to marry her, almost demands it, and she doesn't feel like she could say no, which is kind of depressing. She doesn't have a lot of time with London, which is kind of a shame. That's the part that like makes me really feel like it's separate from the show. I'm sure that was like a scheduling issue or something. They just had so many ideas, they didn't know which one to choose. I guess Maddie getting married to this kid was definitely a funny one. I'm glad that that's what they went with. Having her be that main plot made it feel like the original show altogether. They could have just had her have a couple lines, they could have had her incite some actual incident with Zack and Cody, but it kind of becomes Maddie and Zack's episode as opposed to Zack and Cody's episode, or even Zack's episode, which is really cool. Feels like original Sweet Life, and it's so sweet to watch Mosby walk Maddie down the aisle. That actually gives me a really nostalgic, sentimental moment just to see those characters walking down, sharing a really important moment. That's something that I feel really deserves another season of Sweet Life. That's why I wanted to make this video. Let's look at this as kind of like another installment of the original franchise, not necessarily a new show trying to downgrade itself. And with that in mind, this is a lot more sentimental of a moment, and I really like this episode being a kind of installment like that. So yeah, overall, Maddie on Deck, Season 1, Episode 13 is officially Season 4, Episode 4 of Sweet Life. So let's go to Season 4, Episode 5, Mom and Dad on Deck. Isn't that crazy? We're still on the first season of original show references, and there's just so many things that are trying to get us to like this show. I like can't even believe it. So Mom and Dad on Deck is about Kurt and Carrie coming to the ship. They were gonna each individually visit Zack and Cody, but we're surprised to find out that both of them had gotten there. Zack was kind of hoping to have Bros Night, and Cody was excited to share all this time with their dad. So Carrie showing up was kind of like a unexpected event to happen for them, making it like a little bit more of a conflict. You think that it's about to be about them arguing, or like Zack versus his mom or Zack versus his dad, but it turns out after a little bit of getting to see each other again, I like seeing Kurt on this show because it makes it really consistent with their divorce situation, that seeing them argue like this is a very reminiscent of the original show. It kind of reminds me of the episode where they tried to get into their dad's apartment just to have girls over. That's very Sweet Life. After they're all done fighting for the parents' attention with like gifts they're given from Carrie and Kurt, they learn that there's an opportunity for Carrie and Kurt to actually be working there on the ship so they can actually live there with Zack and Cody, which would kind of make the entire show from then forward a Sweet Life of Zack and Cody vibe. That's the crazy stuff. This is Season 4, Episode 5 in my book, because it does feel like the original show. I remember watching this at the time, thinking that there was a chance the parents would be involved in this. It wouldn't be weird. It would definitely fit in pretty naturally. It just depended on where the writers wanted to go. So Mr. Mosby has talent drop out, and he needs entertainment on the SS Tipton. So of course, Carrie's a singer, Kurt's a rock star, two things I completely forgot about, but kind of blend perfectly together. They're apparently both on this off-Broadway show that is about a can of tomatoes and a shopping cart falling in love. It's kind of a ridiculous concept, but very classic of a sitcom in general. So I thought that was kind of funny. Basically, if they get this job, Zack and Cody are really worried about their social lives. They're finally away from their parents, they're experiencing high school, and they kind of don't want to be around them anymore. And I kind of get that. Like, I feel like that was the age I also was starting to step away from my parents, but you guys are away from them all the time. You wouldn't just be excited if they spent more time there? I don't know. Point is, very classic episode. They sabotage their performance so that way Mosby doesn't want to hire them or like allow them to keep performing on the boat, which is kind of cruel. Zack and Cody make huge embarrassments out of them by Zack giving the lighting operator a sock, so he ruins the lighting and everybody messes up, and poor parents having kids like that. They end up getting to a nice resolve at the end of the episode where Carrie kind of gives them like a good message. Sometimes it's best to like be upfront and tell us you don't want us here, as opposed to ruining our careers. It's nice that she's their mom and that's a family dynamic worth forgiving, but if this was like a friend or something, I'd be like, you tried to ruin my chances of getting a job? That's kind of insane. But yeah, the hijinks in this episode, clearly Zack and Cody are back in their old twin position where they're young, they're immature. What made the original Sweet Life so good feels alive in this one. It's not a lot of Woody, not a lot of Bailey. It's very focused on Zack and Cody, which I like. And I like that we don't see the last of the parents in this. We do get to see them in the finale, but let's get there when we get there. Next, we have the 4th season's 6th episode, Double Crossed. Double Crossed is also the 1st season episode 21. Being our 6th installment of the 4th season, we're almost halfway there through being a normal sitcom season. So next we have the 6th episode in the 4th season, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody revival, I'm kind of going with. Originally, I wasn't going to include this episode because, spoiler alert, not a lot of the main cast of Sweet Life comes back. So I was very careful when I was like deciding if this was even necessary to mention. It's season 1, episode 21, Double Cross, the 1st season finale of Sweet Life on Deck. And you're probably thinking like, oh wow, like they have to have people come back for this, like it has to be a big episode, and it kind of is. We have Cody and Bailey being at the forefront of this, and sure, that's a primary connection to this episode, but characters do come back, and sure, they don't have to do with the original franchise, but they do have to do with the original Disney Channel. This is the 2nd part in the 3-part crossover of Wizards on Deck with Hannah Montana. If you guys saw my retrospective on this, I wasn't too happy with how this special kind of came to be. I hate it when they barely acknowledge other characters that the crossovers were planned to be about, like Hannah and Selena not being in the same episode ever. Like, that's kind of annoying. But we're looking at this from a strictly Sweet Life of Zack and Cody standpoint. Like, why did I keep this episode in the chronology to be remembered as the original show's legacy? Because Hannah Montana is in it. Hannah Montana pulls them back to the 1st season of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, something that is a really big deal. Zack and Cody both recognize Hannah from the first time they met, bringing us all the way back to Boston in complete vibes. The whole premise of this episode is that Cody is trying to get Hannah Montana tickets for Bailey to get them to be on that relationship level. Stop, we're not just friends anymore, we have to go to Hannah Montana concert, and that connects us to commitment for life, which kind of would for me. I don't know about you guys. Don't you think? Even though the episode kind of teeters away from being about even the Sweet Life to being wizards, this episode is necessary. Despite all the wizard stuff, which we kind of have to put aside for the sake of this video, it's more so about Cody and Bailey's turning point. This ends up being a big deal. This is the moment they end up staying together.
Yes! My 6-month plan worked!
And it's cool to think that we could keep all the original story beats of The Sweet Life on Deck in this 4th season of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Like, this could essentially just be one of the episodes in this ongoing storyline. It's nice to see Cody with the gross shirt that he had in the first That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana special. Like, that's a nice callback. And seeing Miley as her 3rd season self greeting Zack and Cody as their 4th season selves, like, that's cool. I like that. So we kind of had to throw this in as the 6th episode. So let's keep going though. So we have the 7th episode of Zack and Cody season 4 is going to be crossing into the 2nd season of Sweet Life on Deck. Yep, we went over all the episodes of the 1st season that incorporated the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and there were so many more than I thought. Like, 6 episodes is a lot, considering they only had 21. So the 2nd season only having 2 is kind of a drastic change. It seems like they really took on the identity of what they wanted this 2nd era to be, and it's going full force into Cody's relationship with Bailey. We are fully jumping away from the whole Tipton, Boston era of experiences. Like, we're fully moved on at this point. Season 2, episode 15. Yeah, the 15th episode of The Sweet Life on Deck. They took this long to invite an old character back. Like, that's crazy to me. It's called Mother of the Groom, but this one is probably the best one in the entire series. I feel like the callback is so good that it's like hard to deny that it was okay waiting this long. Like, we'd almost completely abandoned the original series up until this point after Double Crossed. So it's nice to have Esteban, Julio Ricardo Montoya de Rosa Ramirez on this episode. It's called Mother of the Groom. So even though it's season 2, episode 15, it is season 4, episode 7 in my book. So Esteban comes in to the SS Tipton, really excited to see Mr. Mosby again. Esteban has great news. He's getting married.
I have come on board to marry my sweetheart Francesca.
Congratulations.
Maria Coselo Gonzalez.
That's awesome.
Demosta Garcia Ramon. Lucia Greenberg Gomez.
Not only is he the night shift manager at the Tipton, ugh, I wish I could see that episode. I would kill to see Esteban at the Tipton being the manager. Like, that would be so cool. But he's here because he's getting married. And Mosby is super excited. He even asks Mosby to be his officiant. It's nice that, like, all these huge life events are kind of what bring people together. Having Maddie almost married being a 4th season part, that's kind of a fun idea. And having Esteban also getting married, it's a little boring, but it's still interesting. We actually are introduced to a lot of characters in Esteban's life, more than even the original series would have done. Like, he brings his mother and his fiance on the ship. And I thought for a second his fiance was the woman from the ballroom dancing episode where Esteban has a whole ballroom dancing team and actually dances with this one girl. But I don't think it's the same girl, actually. But his whole conflict is that his mother doesn't want him to get married to this girl, and this girl loves him. Like, it's Esteban essentially choosing between being a mama's boy. Zack and Cody and him have a lot of moments together that make this episode a really fun watch. For example, Esteban asks them to be his best man. Like, why in the world would they do that? These are children, and now they're all of a sudden, like, accompanying this adult on their wedding. Like, a wedding is a lot of work. I don't know if I would trust Zack and Cody, of all people, to make this a seamless process. They talk about the Tipton a lot, which really makes me feel like it dives into the 4th season aesthetic. Zack and Cody are still causing ruckus here. Like, we're, as an audience, looking through this at the lens of the last time we saw Esteban, and it feels like we're back at home. Like, Bailey's, like, a lot less prominent in this episode. All the new aspects kind of take the back seat of the original show coming out to shine once again. Zack keeps having this recurring attitude toward weddings, like, dude, never get married. It's like, dude, you're 17 years old. I don't think kids in high school cared that much about stuff like this. I mean, it feels like adult writers were just trying to use old sitcom tropes to try to fill out the episode a little bit more, because Zack's perspective's a little warped. I mean, I get it. He's a ladies' man, but does he really want to talk Esteban out of getting married, or even pretend like he knows what that's about to be like? I love how London doesn't recognize Esteban straight off the bat. Like, why in the world would you have these two characters meet again and London just doesn't see him as anything beside like a bellhop? Kind of a perfect joke, so I'm not going to critique it too much. Since we got this new character, Doc Shaw, he was introduced in the Roomy episode as this new celebrity entity on the boat, best friends with Zack now. And he has added a cool new element to the show. I mean, it kind of alters the 4th season of Sweet Life because we didn't really get to introduce him through any of the episodes, but whatever, I think it works. Esteban recognizes him right away, and it kind of normalizes him into the plot. I can't imagine what this actor thought. Like, he probably knew Esteban from the original show too, so to get to meet him must have been fun for him. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see them reconnect with the new characters, have the new energies meet the old energies, and all come together in this huge event, a wedding. My favorite part is when they actually have like a bachelor party and they're like all dancing about it. Like, it's some really fun vibes, and definitely like a mature version of what the original show set out to do. Something that I think is actually really awesome. Cody and Esteban actually bond a lot more than they used to, which is very sweet, because Esteban was more of like a parental figure, and now suddenly he's kind of like Cody's friend, and I really like that. I like that Esteban essentially does get the A-plot the same way Maddie did. I feel like Barbara and Bob kind of got like a second plot. The mom and dad also kind of got their like featured parts, but not necessarily the episode was about them. Like, this episode is purely about Esteban, and I like how that kind of connects me back to the original show. The dancing panda is so awkward, and it just made me laugh when I was watching this. Like, I could not get over it. We have Esteban having to make a choice between his mother and his new fiancée, Francesca, and that's kind of a cool concept. I like that Esteban is, like, forced to grow as a character. London and Bailey end up meeting the mother and trying to get her to be less strung up and, like, more, like, easygoing and make Esteban less of, like, a main part of his life, which I kind of find cool. Like, I feel like that's always an issue with, like, mothers after they have to let go of their kids. Like, they have a trouble finding themselves, and you feel bad for them. But it's cool that London and Bailey work themselves into a Sweet Life-esque plot just by being a part of that. Like, there's so many new characters, but somehow revisiting these old experiences make it feel like a Sweet Life Season 4. The culmination of this episode is actually pretty incredible when they're about to have the wedding and the mom interrupts. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way. She actually just tells them that she blesses the marriage, and they're able to actually get wed, and Esteban grew as a person. They got married. It's a really nice kind of circling ending for Esteban, and I like seeing the boys get to experience that. It's like just an all-around genuine episode, and the jokes in the final scene with the mom are just hilarious. Like, Esteban and his mother together should have been in the first series to begin with, because this is such a good gimmick. I like cannot stop smiling when I see them like actually at the altar and like joking with each other. It's such a genuine like vibe. I like that the new characters kind of take a back seat but still progress the plot, like Bailey and Doc Shaw and Woody. Like, they all are funny still. They're not getting in the way, but they're also not completely out of the episode. Like, they found a really good way at balancing this ensemble at this point that makes it work really good. So yeah, Mother of the Groom is definitely a great addition to the 4th season of The Sweet Life. Then we have an unexpected one that I couldn't really find until I actually watched the show. It's season 4, episode 8 of Sweet Life. It's called Model Behavior, calling out to the episode from season 2, episode 23 of Sweet Life on Deck. In this episode, we actually have the French twins come back. I'm not sure if you remember them from the original show. They really didn't play a huge part, but when they did have romantic-based episodes, Zack and Cody had them to work with, and I kind of liked it. It kind of gives me the same energy of that episode from the original series, Twins at the Tipton, where the whole gimmick of the episode is leaning to the boys being twins. And I like when we talk about the boys being twins, because that is something that's consistent over Sweet Life on Deck and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. You know, like, the plot lines that involve them being brothers make it a really relatable sitcom, sure, like Drake and Josh, but then when we talk about the fact that there's identical twins, it does something in this show that automatically excludes all the other shows and makes it its own unique premise. Like, this episode reminds us that there's a whole twin aspect to their dynamic that we can't forget about, and seeing these two model girls come back from the original series is great. I like that it's a conflict between Bailey and Cody. Like, Cody is kind of comparing his old relationship to his new one, which, poor Barbara, I can't believe like she wasn't as much of a threat. But this is cool that like we actually get to see these guys again. This episode is really good at connecting Bailey and the twins as being like more a part of the same series. Like, at first you'll see the French twins and be like, oh, like they're definitely from the original show, and Bailey is like this whole love interest of the new show, which is kind of cool. My favorite moment of this episode that really ties it back is when the French twin and Bailey actually stage a fake argument over Cody, as if like she hadn't got over him the whole time, even though like they barely dated. It was middle school. So it looks like that Bailey and this girl get into an argument over him, and Cody's confidence goes to the moon. Like, this kid has never had girls fight over him, and he never will again, probably. And it's just funny to think that like this ended up being a whole like disguise. Like, Bailey and this French girl are actually friends, and they just staged that whole argument to make it look like they were fighting over him, but really it's just to be sweet. And it definitely harkens on the original Sweet Life. I know this episode feels like it's mainly in the Sweet Life on Deck, but these cameos really make it feel like we're back to the original show in a really comforting way. So I just had to add this addition to it. But with that said, that kind of ends our season 2 episodes for the connection between Sweet Life season 4. So yeah, we got 8 episodes of this 4th season, and we're kind of getting toward the end of it. It kind of is giving me like Hannah Montana Forever vibes, where like they have a whole final season of them at a new place as if it's a new show, but really they're trying to fit in as many stories as possible. And I think this show would have done so much better if they tried that Hannah Montana style of doing it instead of going 3 extra years for all these cast members. Like, that's so not fair for them. Like, I feel so bad that they had to, like, treat this like a new show when Hannah Montana got to go off amicably. But we're definitely in the home stretch, and I feel like we got some really good episodes out of this. Considering the fact that the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody just got better over time, and the Sweet Life on Deck just got worse over time, it feels like doing this whole 4th season retrospective is a way of kind of resurrecting what could have been. Like, I feel like this could have been such a high note for this entire series if they kept only these aspects of the new show. But that's not the world we're working with here, so let's take a break from the world and get back to my concept. Season 4, Episode 9 of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. This next one is taking us to the 3rd season of On Deck, Trouble in Tokyo. So Trouble in Tokyo is Season 4, Episode 9 for me. Yeah, so this episode is a part of the canon and the chronology because it has Carrie Martin come back again, which I kind of like. I wish we got her in the 2nd season because we got her in the 1st season twice, and then now we get her in the 3rd season. But more so, like, if you look at it in isolation, Carrie's just in, like, 3 episodes of the 4th season I've just created. So it almost kind of works out in a way. So instead of Carrie coming back to the boat this time, Zack and Cody find out that Carrie is actually filming a commercial in Tokyo. So when the ship stops, it becomes more of like a family episode. I like that we're kind of like giving a break to some of the new main characters to focus on the old ones. It's almost like this show lives in intermittent revivals of itself. The one twist about this is that the soda commercial they're doing, Carrie doesn't actually like the soda they're drinking. Apparently it has shrimp in it, which is so gross. And Carrie ends up having like this like whole immature episode where like she becomes kind of like a crybaby of like not wanting to do a lot of these things, which is funny because we've seen her as this mother-like figure not only in the entire 3 seasons of Sweet Life, but in these couple episodes we've seen of the 4th season of Sweet Life. Like, we have her in Let Us Entertain You, and she's like letting her kids essentially lead the way. Here, she like doesn't want to be involved in the soda commercial, so she kind of cries a lot and tries to get out of it, with Zack and Cody essentially stepping in to be like, hey, like, we can help you get out of this situation. The B plot is pretty digressed away from any of the main season 4 stuff I would want to talk about, so just assume Bailey and Woody are just kind of off doing their own thing. And we get the good old-fashioned Cody, Zack, and Carrie vibes. It reminds me of Risk It All when the 3 were involved in that game show. Like, that was solely about them, and that's kind of how this season is taking on this episode. When Carrie doesn't want to do the commercial and cries her way out of it, basically the guy is like, I have no tolerance for you, like, I took a liking to you earlier, but now I'm not taking a liking to you anymore, which is kind of funny. When they threaten Carrie with all the money she's cost them, which, by the way, it's not how it would work. I think if you're the talent, you wouldn't be responsible for making up the money of the production. That's crazy. They are told that they have to work in the taste testing lab. Zack, Cody, and Carrie. So they have to try all these disgusting flavors, and I'm talking like really disgusting. Like, they said shrimp poop at one point, and I'm like, there's no way that's a flavor. I think you guys are just misrepresenting a culture again, because that's like, that can't be an actual flavor. They're essentially living in their own personal heck in Tokyo, trying all these disgusting flavors, and you kind of feel bad for them, but you like that you have an episode with Carrie in it. I do like that experience. Then the episode kind of ends in a way that like the Hannah Montana episode ended. Like, I'm not sure if you remember that cheese jerky situation, but Oliver and Jackson dropped cheese in beef jerky and it became this new thing, and that's kind of what happens here. Zack accidentally mixes peanut butter and jellyfish, and it becomes like a great new flavor that this guy suddenly wants to use, but he can't use it because copyright issues. Kind of like me and Paramount right now. Kind of annoying to not have your videos be uploaded and appearing because they get appealed all the time. Like, I don't know why. Just sue me at this point. They finally get out of being forcibly trapped and having to try all these disgusting flavors, and great, they get to leave Tokyo. I love that the mother is the most recurring character out of all the old ones. I do think we should get a little bit more of Esteban, a little bit more of Maddie, but they never come back, unfortunately. We do get Arwen and the dad again, so it's actually the most natural recurring characters, but still, like, it would be nice to have the other ones come back again. Episode is kind of depressing. It's Graduation on Deck, the final episode of The Sweet Life on Deck, and that is the perfect end to what would be the 4th season of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. The same way Hannah Montana Forever ended with their finale, and, you know, we only got to see their house for like 13 episodes. Imagine this was kind of the case with The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Imagine they had a 4th season all taking place on one deck, The Sweet Life on Deck. Imagine Hannah Montana turned Hannah Montana Forever into 3 seasons, where her secret was slowly being revealed through 3 more seasons. That would be torture. I wish they did that with The Sweet Life on Deck. But yeah, they end the entire series with a bunch of recurring characters coming back. Not as much as you would hope, though. Like, not Esteban. Like, come on, guys. We deserve to see them one more time. But yeah, Kurt and Carrie come back one more time, and we finally get to see the boys graduate. It's a big deal, and it's a really nice culmination of everything we've seen before. I don't know if you remember season 3 of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, but that's when they went from middle school to high school. And Zack, like, had this whole issue with summer school, but essentially, like, they're all new in high school. Something that is a great prerequisite to this entire series, and something that kind of ends pretty perfectly. You know, like, we see them entering high school, and then 3 seasons later, we see them exiting high school. Like, it works out in a way that Disney Channel probably didn't anticipate, but are lucky they got. Of course, London has to graduate this episode. Doesn't make sense to me, but I feel like if we did view this as a 4th season, her character would kind of be fallen under the bus. Like, Zack and Cody are lucky their plot lines are intact, because London just feels left behind in every way. I feel like I should have added a couple episodes with her plot lines to make it feel like she's still part of the show, but it didn't really work. I mean, there was that one episode of Sweet Life on Deck where London forgot Mosby's birthday. She's trying to get him a good gift, but she doesn't really know what to get him. And that's a good character development episode on both those character parts. But since it didn't directly tie to specifically Zack or Cody, I didn't really feel like it was necessary to mention. Arwen is back, and Carrie and him are in the same room, which is probably the reason I like this episode the most. Sure, we get a lot of experiences with Zack and Cody not knowing what to do with the rest of their lives. They're not accepted into the college. They have trouble with finding their identities, and their parents actually step in. Kurt and Carrie are great parents in this episode, helping them, like, seek out each other, seek out, like, guidance, and fully put, like, an end to their career. Something bigger than the Tipton experience, bigger than the high school experience. Like, this whole franchise is coming to an end. And we got a lot of great moments, like references, callbacks to the original show in a way that they haven't done in quite some time. You know, like, the first season had a bunch of callback episodes, second season only a few, and this last season gave us some really nice small hints of it. Everything seems to be at peace, at least as we conclude The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. So let's review, shall we, now that we're done. We have season 4 of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody coming in hot, and I really think this would have been the ideal way to end the original show, although I guess you can't really change too much about it. That's just how life goes. So yeah, we have season 4, episode 1, Let Us Entertain You, from season 3 of Zack and Cody. And then we have The Sweet Life Set Sail, episode 2. Then we have episode 3, Chocolate and Flowers with Bob and Barbara. Then episode 4, Maddie on Deck. Episode 5, Mom and Dad on Deck. Episode 6, Double Crossed with the Hannah Montana crossover. Episode 7, Mother of the Groom, Model Behavior. Episode 8, episode 9, Trouble in Tokyo, and then episode 10, Graduation on Deck. Wow. So we really got a full 4th season out of these Sweet Life on Deck episodes. I would totally recommend everybody getting together right now and watching these episodes again, and just tell me this doesn't make a good 4th season. Johnny 2000 has been all about these revivals recently, and I've been having fun, like, piecing together how they would work if they did. And I definitely think if the Sweet Life on Deck took the Hannah Montana Forever approach, they could have had a really, really strong final season. But instead, they had a really, really awkward 3 seasons and 71 additional episodes to the original Zack and Cody. As I get to finish my retrospectives on Zack and Cody, I feel like this will be a nice little gift before it's over. Let me know if you really, really need me to do retrospectives on Sweet Life on Deck. I'm really not looking forward to doing it, but I will if you guys think it'll be worth watching. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my Zack and Cody journey. I mean, I've had a lot of fun with this, like talking about the offensive episodes recently, talking about how we could finally make a 4th season work of that show. It's just a good show. Like, it deserves to have one set of cast, not too many hodgepodges of ensemble characters that won't really mean that much to anybody later, but whatever. It saved itself, and I'm just happy that the sweet life of Zack and Cody lives on, even if it's not in the best way. There's still an optimal way to review this show, if you know what I mean. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, everybody, this is Johnny 2000. Have a great day.